something happened which was unthinkable with Toronto real estate market. The sales volume increased in the month of July 2025 comparing to July last year. Typically, July is a slow month. People are busy with summer activities and they're not really into seeing homes and making purchases. However, this past July showed an increase in the number of sales and activity with Toronto real estate. There are some factors associated with this change, and if you want to find out more, continue watching as we're going to dive deeper into the details and find out how it will affect you as a potential buyer, seller, or an investor, or someone who's just curious about the real estate market in Toronto, so that you can make an educated decision when the time comes. Thank you. Now, let's dive deeper into the Toronto real estate market stats for the month of July 2025. So, average home price has gone down for about 1.2%, and it's down to $1,102,000 in City of Toronto. This represents all home types: condos, semi-detached, row townhouses, and detached houses. And it is actually taking 28 days in average to sell any type of property. So that is an increase of 21% year to date, which means comparing to the early days of 2025, now it takes more time for an average home to get sold. On the condo corner, which actually you can get a rough idea about what's happening in the condo segment, the average selling price is down to $684,000. That is a decrease of 8.6% comparing to the January 2025. And the number of condos that were sold is roughly around 1,028 units. And that's actually an increase of 3.5% comparing to last year. So overall, we have just shy of 5 months of inventory with the Toronto real estate market in all home types. Now, remember, in the detached segment or semi-detached or townhouses or apartments, this number is different if you're just looking at those asset classes. So in brief, the Toronto real estate market experienced the best home sales result for the month of July since 2021. Remember, 2021 was the peak of the market. The prices are going through the roof due to the cheap money that was available and the lowest interest rates that we ever could have asked for. And as soon as Bank of Canada started to increase the interest rates with a steep curve, we started to see that the prices are falling. So now in overall, the average selling price is now, like I mentioned, is between $1.1 to $1.02 million and reflecting a 6% decrease compared to the same period last year. And remember, this is average price for all home types. So average home price has decreased for 6% comparing to last summer. However, falling prices and improved interest rate will actually improve affordability. Now, here's an example of the available rates that are currently out there in the market as of August 26. So for a 5-year variable, as you see, if you are going to get a $500,000 mortgage with 25-year amortization with a 5-year term, you are looking at an average between 3.9 to 4.2%. This will translate to an average $2,700 for your monthly payment for every $500,000 that you bought. Now, comparing a 3-year fixed term for the same amount of mortgage, same amount of amortization, only a 3-year fix, which will give you peace of mind that your payments is not going to increase comparing to variable rate. You're looking at somewhere between 3.6 to almost 3.9%. So if you're out there shopping for a mortgage or you're renewing your mortgage, if you get an offer that starts with 3, I believe you should take it. This rate that we currently see here is basically the same rate that you would get back in 2019, 2018. So I personally had an investment property back in 2018 and my mortgage rate was 3.5, and that was considered a normal rate. So whether or not the rates will fall even further, that's a big question. So I think we are kind of in a stabilized range in terms of the available mortgage rate out there in the market. So now let's dive into the numbers and see how mortgage payment for an average home price is going to be. So if we take the average home price of $1,102,000 at 4% interest, 20% down payment, which is $220,000, for a 25-year amortized, your monthly payment is going to be $4,637. So now, this will give you a quick summary, especially on the land transfer tax and your first year payment and what the overall mortgage is going to cost. So your land transfer tax, if you're a first-time home buyer, you are going to get a rebate of up to $8,000. So if you are not a first-time home buyer, then your land transfer tax is going to be hovering around $37,000 for the $1.1 million purchase. Or if you are a first-time home buyer, your land transfer tax is going to be $28,000. Your first year payment, $21,000 is going to go towards your principal and $34,000 towards your interest. So on the first year, this is going to cost you $55,000. So is this high? Yes, it's Toronto. The property prices are still crazy, but this will give you an idea about where those payments are going to be land. So if you've been following me, this is my favorite chart to show to my client and also to educate people who are trying to understand what's the relationship between the interest rates and home prices. So as you see here, this chart shows perfectly what's happening since April 2021 all the way to July 2025. So the blue dots are indicating the interest rates and the red dots are indicating the average home price. So when we were at the lowest interest rates, which was 0.25 basis point by Bank of Canada for the overnight rate, this is when you would get a 1% mortgage for a 5-year term. So during that time, as you see how dramatically and how fast the prices have increased, just from April 2021 to February 2022, not even in a year, the prices increased from 1 million to 1.3 million, and that's the average price. But as soon as Bank of Canada started to increase rates, the prices start to fall. And we know what happened. We peaked in June 2023 and stayed there at the highest interest rate. This is when you would get a mortgage for 6.5%. And then as the Bank of Canada started to drop rates, you see how it changed. Some of these peaks and drops are seasonal, but in overall, we stayed relatively in the same 1.1 to $105 million. And now you see the prices actually falling. And in terms of the interest rate, we are at 2.75 for the overnight rate. And like we discussed, you can get a mortgage for 3.9 to 4% right now. So an overall look of what is happening in the overall GTA market. You see the number of sales has increased. So July 2025, there were 6,100 sales reported versus July 2024, there were 5,500 sales reported. So a 500 increase in terms of the number of sales. However, the prices have decreased comparing to last year. So from 1,115,000 down to 1,051,000. As you see here in the 416 area code, which is Toronto proper, the detached homes are averaging 1.5, semis at 1.2, townhouses at 920, and condo apartments are averaging at 684,000. However, on a year-over-year basis, you can see the average price in Toronto for detached homes have decreased for 4.6%, 1.1% decrease for semis, 5.2% for townhouses, and 8.6% for condos, as we discussed. So now, what will happen with the real estate? What you should know is we are in a buyer's market across the board, and buyers have a lot more options to choose from, plus better negotiating power. Mortgage rates, as we discussed, both fixed and variable rates are now stabilized, and they're pretty much in the same range. Historically, we are in a stable mortgage rate environment compared to pre-COVID. Should you buy now? That's a big question. If you're a buyer out there, or if you're a seller who wants to sell and upgrade or upsize or downsize. So real estate is a long-term game. Remember, there is no day trading with real estate. You cannot do that. You're going to lose money if you don't hold onto your property for minimum 5 years. That's when you're going to start to see actual appreciation. And now, given how many options are available with stabilized mortgage rates, the affordability improved, and that's where you see more sales and more activities in the market. And remember, if you're a seller out there trying to sell your property, make sure you are well positioned, and it doesn't matter how great your property is or you have a nicer looking home that your neighbor. Remember, it always comes down to price. So instead of chasing the market down, you always want to stay ahead of the market. So get educated, talk to the industry professionals, your real estate agent, your mortgage broker, your lawyer, your accountant. Make sure you have a full picture before making any emotional decision. So in nutshell, the single family homes, especially in the popular areas with great schools and parks, are still seeing good activities and multiple offers. Semi-detached and townhouses are the hottest commodity these days, and that's just due to the fact that they're in a more approachable price range. From 1.2 to 900,000, that's what average semi-detached or townhouses in the city of Toronto right now. So it's more approachable. And if you're a semi-detached or townhouse owner and you're thinking about upsizing the detached segment, it's pretty much the perfect condition in that environment. The reason is there are a lot more buyers who are looking for what you have, and there are more options for what you want in the detached. So you can sell it at a better price and you can buy it at better price. And always more options means you have better negotiating power. If you're considering buying in the next 3 months, it's better to have your pre-approval ready, and this might be your chance to beat the market. On the condo side, 70% of all the active listings in Toronto specific are condos. So if you're thinking to sell your condos, make sure you are well positioned. There is no room for error. If you try to sell it at a higher than market value, trust me, 99% of the time, you'll start to readjust, and that's when you need to reduce your price more and more until you get what the market value is. Right now, majority of the sales activities in the condo area are in the $600,000 and below. That's where it's actually really approachable. With even $60,000 down payment, you can easily get approved for a mortgage and be able to purchase a condo within that price range. So it's very approachable, especially for first-time homebuyers or someone trying to get into the real estate investment. That's where actually rent will still make sense and will cover your costs. However, it again depends on how much down payment you are going to provide. There are going to be 24,000 new units that are expected to be completed in 2025, and especially those are going to be one-bedroom or junior suite. So these were all the condos that were sold at the peak of the market in 2020. Now they're coming to completion. So there's going to be even further pressure on condos, especially in that segment of one bedrooms. The larger condos or boutique buildings and mid-rises with nice floor plans, great views, barbecue hookup and terrace, those are always going to hold their value, even if it's a slow market, because those are the type of products that are mainly end user based rather than investor. So in summary, the demand for low-rise single-family homes are still high, especially on the semi-detached and townhouse side. Like I mentioned, they're very approachable in terms of their average price, and people can get qualified. If a couple are employed and they're making decent money, they can potentially be able to afford that type of properties. And obviously, it's a very good chance for people who own that type of property and want to upsize to a detached home. This will be their chance. Condo market will remain flat and slight price decrease as we get a lot more inventory added to the market with respect to the newer units that are coming to completion. However, the nice condos with large outdoor space and boutique buildings, those will still have their own, buyers, and the demand there is still strong, and you would see sales are happening actually quite frequently in a shorter period of time. Variable rates and fixed rates are both within the same range. So if you're thinking you're a kind of person that wants to have stability and don't want to think about whether rates goes up and down, 3-year fix probably is your best bet. 5-year fix are also still in a good range. But if you think that down the road the rates might go even down, you might be actually want to think about variable rates. Still within the same range, and it gets you more flexibility if you intend to sell in less than the contract term. However, it all depends on what you want to do and what your long-term plan is. If you're planning to make a move or you want to make a purchase in the next 6 to 12 months, or you want to upsize or downsize, make sure you have all your ducks in a row. If you're a buyer, financing pre-approval is a must. Once you have that in your hand, you can lock in the rates for 120 days and you can start monitoring the market, and you never know what's going to become available. Maybe your dream home will become available, and if you don't have the pre-approval in hand, that might take some time for you to obtain it, and during that time, the house might be gone. So If you're thinking that you're going to make a move, have your pre-approval, talk to your mortgage broker, and make sure you have everything ready. So once you see what you like, you can take an action. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today and this was useful for you. If you intend to make any move in your real estate and you want to have a chat and find out more, you can use the link down below in the description and you can book a call with me and we'll be happy to help. We help a lot of buyers, sellers, and investors with the real estate journey, and we will be happy to pass on the experience that we have gained and what we know from the ground level so you can make an educated decision in your next real estate move. Thank you very much, and don't forget to subscribe and follow for more.